Good morning. So I have already done this class once on Facebook, and I did it a couple days ago. It was on Saturday, I think, and it was so warm that my phone kept overheating. So it was cutting out, and my internet would cut out, and then I would come back, and I'd be like walking around the room trying to find a cool place, and it just was a mess. So I'm making a new video to make everything new and concise, and then we also will have this uploaded to YouTube so that we can reference this in the future if you ever have this question. The reason why I'm doing the class is because a lot of people have had this question. Can you become resistant to essential oils, or can you develop a tolerance to essential oils? And actually, these are two different things. A lot of times maybe we use that word resistant or tolerant interchangeably, but they're two different things. But basically what people are asking is, I've been using a certain oil and, it really worked well for me. It was awesome, like maybe something like for sleep, and now it's just not working the same way. Did I become resistant to it, or did I develop a tolerance to it? Or maybe like somebody else, like everybody else seems to be bragging about how great this oil is and how well it works for them, and we just don't have those same results. We don't notice the same things. So what's going on here? What is this? So first of all, we're going to address resistance. Can you be resistant to an essential oil? And the short answer is no. And it really goes back to the chemistry of how oils work. So what resistance is, a lot of times when we think about resistance, we think about like antibiotics, right? And antibiotic resistance. So there are certain bacteria out there now, because antibiotics have been overused and overprescribed over the years. These bacteria are now resistant to antibiotics. So we think things like MRSA, right? We call them superbugs. Now there's several antibiotics that they are resistant to. They no longer respond to that antibiotic. And when we think about how antibiotics work, or even medications, drugs that we may take, it makes sense, right? Because they're synthetic, they're created in a lab, they have to be created exactly the same way each and every time. That's just how they work. Like, to be able to patent it, to be able to create these drugs, they have to be like, if they made it 10 years ago and it's the same formula, it's the exact same drug 10 years later. With essential oils, that's just not the case, because they're, number one, they're alive. When you have an essential oil that's correctly harvested, when they process it out of the plant, they use very low temperatures, very low pressure to preserve that oil. So it's still alive. It is still able to function as it was in the plant. Every single harvest is different. Every plant is different, right? So if you have a plant on this side of the field versus a plant on that side of the field, they're the same plant, but it's a little bit different. Their chemistry is slightly different. Last year they got more rain. This year, literally, you cannot, 2018, 2019, 2020, you cannot create the exact same plant every time, because each and every day is not exactly the same. If it's 78 degrees on October 1st this year, it could have been 63 degrees on October 1st last year. You can't replicate it. And that's why essential oils, like things like frankincense, they studied frankincense, they found its benefits on tumors. And yet they had to stop the study, because when they tried to take a compound out and make it synthetic, make it something that could be patented, it didn't work anymore. And so essential oils are not patentable because they constantly are changing. This is a good thing, because your body, every single time, it recognizes, say, okay, it's lavender, but it's a little bit different every time. Every bottle, every harvest, even every drop in the bottle isn't exactly the same as the last one. So you can't develop a resistance to it. Now, there's also, I might be getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself, so I won't go into that. But let's talk about tolerance really quick. Can you become tolerant to an essential oil? So tolerance is defined as, after repeated exposure to a substance, it takes more and more of that substance to produce the same effect. Again, short answer is no. That's not how essential oils work. When we look at studies on any of these, there's never been a study that shows that you can develop a tolerance to oils or that you become resistant to them. And again, it goes back to how oils work. Tolerance is meaning that over time, like it's building up in your body, kind of like a pain medication, right? We can develop a tolerance, and now we need more and more and more and more. That, again, is not how essential oils work in the body. So when we're wondering, okay, then what happened? What happened? Why is a certain oil not working the same way for me? Number one, your body's needs change. So an essential oil, like maybe we were using lavender to sleep, and now it's just not working quite the same way. So an essential oil helps to restore balance to your body, right? We're not necessarily meant to use, like, especially, this is especially true with supplements. I keep saying oils, but this also includes supplements. So we may be taking a supplement like, let's say, Thiamine. And Thiamine is wonderful for supporting our thyroid and our adrenal. But even Gary Young said, we're not meant to take that forever. It is to help restore balance to our body so that eventually we don't need that oil or that product anymore at that time, right? And so our needs are constantly changing. The oil helps restore balance in that area and we no longer need it. However, that doesn't mean that our sleep has one thing that's triggering it to not work, right? So let's say lavender was helping with sleep, but now we've been really stressed out with everything going on in the world and our adrenals are shot. Well, if your adrenals are tired because you're stressed out, they're going to wake you up at 3, 4 a.m. because your blood sugar starts to drop because your cortisol has been too high. It's a mess, right? So that can disrupt your sleep. Now, lavender, while it's very balancing, can help with blood sugar. You may need a different oil or you may need to address your adrenal health in order to have better sleep. Do you see how that works? Our body's needs change. So as we balance one area, it doesn't mean another area is not going to need balancing. Also, if you think of us, we're like on Shrek. We're like onions, right? We have layers. Cake also has layers. But you remove one layer, you're going to have another layer underneath. Now you need to address that layer. Maybe lavender isn't the best thing to address that layer. And then you remove that layer. Now you need something else to address the next layer. So that's why our oil needs change. And that's where it's really, really important to listen to your body. Don't listen to like somebody. If I tell you, hey, use lavender, it works great for me, try it. But if it doesn't work great for you, you don't have to keep using that oil just because I said so, right? So for me, I will go through and I've learned because I've used all the oils. I just stick them on me. How do I feel, right? And gradually, if you listen to your body, it starts telling you. You start like, it tells you in the way of, yeah, I'm really drawn to that oil today. Or like, yeah, that sounds just right. I can look at something on my shelf and be like, yeah, no. I go over here and I'll be like, ooh, what's this over here? Yeah, I just need to smell this. And One Heart, I love One Heart. So I just literally leave this sitting on my desk because I just love smelling it. Now, if I look at it and say, I don't really want to smell that, I don't, okay? It's that simple. Your body knows what it needs. Number 2, and this is a big one, your body's chemistry changes. And this is especially true for women, okay? Guys just don't do all the stuff our body does. It's very easy. Like, that's why, like, my husband, he can just, like, throw oils on them. They always work. It really doesn't matter because he doesn't change as much as I do. Because a woman constantly are, and men too, their chemistry is changing throughout their body depending on what's going on in their environment, what's going on in their life, the stress levels, the sleep levels the night before. But when we think of women, not only are we impacted by our environment, but we have internal cycles constantly going on. Like, is it, we look at, okay, environment-wise, is it Monday, is it Saturday? Our chemistry is going to be different depending on if it's the weekend or if it's a work day. But a woman, it can be a Saturday with your period. It can be a Saturday without your period. Depending on where you are in your cycle, your body's chemistries and your oil needs changes, okay? So that's why maybe this oil worked great, at that part of your cycle, and you're not even thinking about it, right? We're not thinking, unless you're like literally like me, you like to like research all of that and you're writing everything down and you're saying, okay, this is why. I always love to know this is why. And sometimes we don't know why, right? Sometimes we don't know really what's going on internally with us. But, as moms too, if you think about it, our sleep cycle is constantly changing. If you have little guys, or even my kids, I had a kid that woke up at 5 a.m. and didn't feel well. And so I had stayed up late and read a book the night before. So I'm down to like 3 hours of sleep. So the next day was very different than the day before where I had gotten like 12 hours of sleep, right? 3 hours versus 12 hours of sleep. My chemistry is going to be entirely different. I react to food differently depending on my sleep or depending on where I am in my cycle or that day. So I just wanted to point that out, that things change. So number 1, your body's needs change and your body's chemistry changes. So what can you do about this? Thankfully, there are hundreds of oils and products that we can use. So try something else. If the lavender's not doing it anymore, maybe add some cedarwood to it. If you're finding that this oil used to diffuse, it's just not, you're like, oh, it's nice. try something new. I mean, there's always something else. Like I said, I got one heart here. This is a brand new oil from this summer. I love it. One time with lavender. So when I first got started with essential oils, I was familiar with synthetic lavender. I'd been using synthetic lavender and I hated it. And so I really was repelled by lavender for a long time. And then all of a sudden I went through probably like a 2 to 3 month stretch where I just could not get enough lavender. Like I bathed in it, I slathered it everywhere, I was diffusing it. If I could, I would have just chugged bottles of it. That's how much I crave lavender. And all of a sudden I just woke up one day and I was like, yeah, I don't really feel like lavender today. And it never came back. I use it now like a normal person, but for 2-3 months, I could not get enough. And so if you were like that, now all of a sudden, would I say, well, I developed a tolerance to lavender. I used it so much. Now I can't use it anymore. Now I don't really want to use it anymore. Or it's just not working the same way anymore. No, my body's needs changed. I was listening to my body. My body was saying, give me the lavender. And now it's saying, no, not anymore. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very much for fixing that area or balancing that area. Now we move on to something else. So if you're finding something's not working for you, try something else. Also, what we need to remember is that essential oils and supplements work better when our toxic load in our body is lower. So if you're somebody that's kind of new to oils and you're just not seeing the results that you want, you may want to consider what's in your environment and what you're loaded with, right? So we want to remove toxins from our diet, from our personal care products, from our environment, and this can take some time. We may also want to consider doing a detox or doing a colon cleanse, cleansing out this toxic load from our body. And then all of a sudden we'll find that the oils work much more effectively. And I see this all the time. I have people who have stellar diets. They've been eating organic food for a long time. Their home has had chemicals for years. They literally can smell the lavender and they're like, yep, I feel like I'm ready for bed. That's all they have to do. Or, just the oils are so much more effective when our bodies are working more effectively, right? When we're not loaded down with toxins. So if you're finding, or you're having strange reactions when you use things, start looking, maybe saying, okay, yeah, I don't eat very well. And maybe you don't want to change that. Some people, that's not the first thing we want to jump on, but maybe looking at our environment, start switching out our cleaning chemicals, maybe looking at our lotion and our shampoo, trying to clean those up. Again, we have whole classes on how to do this in our group. So reach out to me too. If you're like, I'm not sure what to do or where to start, I can get you some information on that. But that will help so that oils and supplements are working more effectively in our body and that we're seeing the results that we want. All right, so I hope this helped answer some of your questions. And again, as always, feel free to reach out to me if you have more.